Hey everyone, it's Shay Seeking, and I would like to go ahead and start off with using the fair use logo on this video. I'm not sure exactly if I can use this video, but we're gonna go ahead and do it anyways, and whatever happens, end up happening. So I was watching a little bit of this, and I just think that I just started to get a little bit bothered real quick. So, I was watching this live about this whole reparations. I've been trying to keep my head out of it, but when it comes to stuff like this, I feel like I gotta peek in every once in a while to see what these fools or these talking heads are talking about. Now, when it comes to this, I always tell you guys, I'm not telling you what it is. I ain't telling you what it ain't. I'm just telling you what it looked like to me. And what this looked like to me is like it always looked. But there's another part of me that feels like there is some form of a change that is coming that is going to change the game. Now, I've been doing a lot of Bible study, and I'm not telling you what it is, but something that struck me when one of these people said something that this was going on for a generation, and then the next generation. They specifically wanted to go ahead and throw in the fact that it's been 3 generations. And then it also reminds me of, I believe that there's a scripture about, no, I know that there is, okay, about it being not this generation, but the next in the next generation, or the next generation, but the one after that. I don't know. That just always that just rung a bell with me. I've been doing a lot of uncovering the fact that in my eyes, and I have brought forth and done hours of video on the fact that and I think it's funny that some of these people bring up scripture or biblical aspects during this here hearing. Now, I only made it like, let's see, about 30 minutes in, and I went ahead and turned it off. But I found it funny that they mentioned some of the things that I am bringing forth on my YouTube channel about decoding or uncovering some of the what look like truths to me when it comes to American history and the Bible. Okay, that's what I've been doing. I've been deep in the work, so a lot of this stuff is real funny to me to hear these people speaking on this. Now, I think this is what they do, and because a lot of people don't really pay attention and they're in a different type of mindset where emotions are flaring, whether they're on the side of you being very emotional because you don't like the way something sounds or what. So I feel like I've removed all of that, and I like to just be clear minded when I come to these things and not be all in my feelings about it. And if I feel like I'm getting in my feelings about it, I'll let you guys know that I'm getting in my feelings about it. And I'm not speaking on information that has been gathered over time. So, usually, okay, and a lot of people don't notice this, but usually, because I know that when it comes to politics and when it comes to entertainment and when it comes to all of these other platforms in which we are looking up to or looking to somebody to answer things for us, you have to be very careful. Everybody, and when it comes to so-called black people or the American Indian, everybody that look like you ain't you. And I'm going to tell you one thing. Everybody or every uh mm, pastor or every person that you look to for spiritual guidance, whether they know it or not, may not be telling you the truth. Okay? A lot of information that we take for truth or fact are just theories or writings of just random people that had certain agendas throughout time when it comes to his story of the so-called Americas. Okay? I'm trying to do this slow. Okay? Because I have already come to the conclusion in my mind that the very God that people think that um is creating this plane for us in Genesis in your Bible may be, I like to say tied to, that has something to do with or whatnot, the government is what I call it. Okay? There are too many correlations and too many things that I have recently put together that shows me something that has always been on my mind when it comes to the founding or the creation of this nation. And because somebody has changed your perception, this is how strong perception. That's why I always say perception is everything. Okay? So just because these people or these talking heads or these puppets in all of these different arenas have been able to give you the perception of things, and no matter how much you want to argue with me, television has been playing a huge part in the demise of humanity since it has come into fruition, or whatever you want to call it. Sometimes I use words that sound like they mean it, and I just hope they do. But let's just go with that one. Or for the past couple of generations, anyhow. Okay. So these people have been speaking on terms as if they are us, if we have asked them to come to terms and speak for us. And a lot of us don't seem to understand that when said people came here, okay, this is their story, okay, they had darker view people with them. So if we want to say Europeans, excuse me, or white, so-called white people came here, we have to remember, okay, that Europe, Africa, and Asia, no matter what they tell you about them being separate continents, are all really pretty much connected. Mhm. And when you look at those meetings that they're having over there in the UN, when the big dogs get together, there's rarely anyone over there that represents you, American, so-called Black, Negro, American Indian. Even when you look at the so-called African brothers or peoples, they look more like the Chinese or Asian than they look like you. This is not me being racist. This is me telling you that even some of your I can't make it up. I've been trying to make a celebrity or whatever. But your entertainers, okay, that you love and worship and cherish, even some of them, although they act like they are for you, are not. And though they act like they are you, they are not. Okay? The sooner we figure that the American Negro or American Indian, okay, has been set apart, and that the Americas consist of, if we want to go back to the origin, and since people want to bring God and the Bible and the creation into this, is one landmass. I like to say the Americas, from Canada all the way down to the tip, including the islands. And I think that a lot of us, not saying that those people originated there or whatnot, because we know that if you delve deep into this information, they could be really from anywhere. But I look at those people in the Pacific Islands and things, and a lot of these people, like the Papuan people, have afros, and they kind of look a lot more like us than we actually look like so-called Africans, and so on, so forth. So I'm just looking at the fact that I feel like dark people around the world may be in trouble, okay? But I have to worry about the people that I know, that I've done research, that have been misled and called African Americans, when most of us have an elder in our family that may have at some time told you that you had Indian in your family. Now, we didn't know that Indian in your family meant that you were the actual Indians. We didn't know that when our teachers were telling us in high school that they had brought 550 million, however millions of so-called Africans over here to the Americas. That the slave trade records showed that they only brought 300,000, around 300,000, because I had someone bring me some information that says 600,000. But anyways, there's nowhere near the millions that you were taught in school. And this video irritated me because this woman that looks like she could be a so-called black person is stating numbers in the millions when we know from doing research good and damn well that there was not that many people. So what is the agenda? What are these people really up to? What are these talking heads and these puppets really up to? Ask yourself these questions before you get too excited. And you get too so excited that you get misled or dealt a hard blow at the end of all of this stuff that these people are talking about. The reason why I clicked on this video is because I saw Danny Glover's face. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I need to peek in on this reparations thing, because what is this? What is going on? Who chose to put Danny Glover as the face of the so-called African American and to speak for us for anything? And some other guy that does movies or something of the sorts. And I just don't understand this, how they select people, and you think you have something to do with this, and you think that these people are really in your corner when they take actors. I mean, these are clearly actors. You can say what you want, but even the ones you see right in front of you, this is a performance. It's all a performance. Okay? These people know exactly who you are. And they keep on screaming this African stuff because there is an agenda when it comes to this. What I'm telling you is you better be careful. You better start working on your family history at least to see how far you can get back. Because I don't think that this could turn out to be some kind of miraculous miracle. But it may be another mass deception in disguise. And I don't trust anything any of these people, these politicians, puppets, entertainers, or anybody does. They will pull them right off the stage and plop them in a serious situation like this, and you go all the way in. You go all the way in and believe in everything that these fools are saying. On that note, we're going to listen to this dude, we're going to listen to the one dude, and then we're going to listen to this other person, this whoa man. Okay? So, let's go ahead in.
Did not reach Texas for 2.
I don't trust any of these fools.
Thank the officers for their help. And
here go your file right here. And for some reason, that don't look like no American Eagle to me.
Authorized to declare recess of the subcommittee at any time. I welcome everyone to today's hearing on H.R. 40 and the path to restorative justice. I'll now
What he's saying sounds good, right? Sounds good.
Ask myself for an opening statement. Today is Juneteenth, a day that commemorates the announcement of the abolition of slavery in Texas and more generally throughout the former Confederacy on June 19, 1865. The news of the Emancipation and Proclamation did not reach Texas for 2 years, and so it was not until 1865 that all enslaved people knew they were free, despite President Lincoln's emancipation announcement. Slavery was a crime against humanity, one whose
Since I'm a seeker, one thing you need to pay attention to, or you need to delve deeper into, which I am going to do as well, is why did they wait that 2 years? And don't let them tell you because this person didn't want to tell this. Delve into it, people. This is your way to freedom. There is a scripture in the book that I don't need anyone to tell me that this might be accurate because I see the deception. Okay? But this particular God, at this particular time, said that his people are perishing because of lack of knowledge. That is just a general term. If we can look at the world today, and if you're somebody that is seeking, or you're somebody that has been able to obtain, certain information, or if you're so-called woke, like the real kind, and you are on this mission to uncover and bring truth with a non-bias and open way of sharing information and letting people come up with their own opinion, then you'll know, okay, that let's see. Again, it's like a 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe right now, and I'm really, kind of tired, and I just lost uh my train of thought. But let's see if I'll gain it. Okay.
Committee on the Judiciary, Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties will come to order. Thank the officers for their help in clearing, getting the door shut and getting folks in. Thank you so much. Without objection, the chair will authorized to declare recess of the subcommittee at any time. I welcome everyone to today's hearing on H.R. 40 and the path to restorative justice. I'll now recognize myself for an opening statement. Today is Juneteenth, a day that commemorates the announcement.
Yeah, that's what I think I was saying. Just ask yourself why. See what was going on. If whatever date he just stated to you guys, go 2 years prior and see exactly what was going on in this country. Don't just go to the first blog or the first thing that pop up on your screen. Do some deep research. Try to find some information. If you're looking in a book, try to find older books in order to find this information and just go.
The abolition of slavery in Texas and more generally throughout the former Confederacy on June 19, 1865. The news of the Emancipation and Proclamation did not reach Texas for 2 years, and so it was not until 1865 that all enslaved people knew they were free, despite President Lincoln's emancipation announcement. Slavery was a crime against humanity, one whose impacts we as a society continue to grapple with today. This year also marks the 400th anniversary of the first African slaves being brought to America. Slavery was our nation's original sin. Our Constitution protected it, embodying it in various compromises.
I'm guessing he's talking about those 20 and some odd slaves. Again, go deep into why they were brought here, who they were, what are the exact terms that they used to identify these people. Were they slaves? Were they calling them Africans? Did they call them Indians, Native Americans? What did they call these people? Okay, maybe look up some of the names. Go a little bit deeper in your research when you're looking at these kind of things. Go a little bit deeper in your research. Because I'm not saying that the slave trade didn't happen. I am saying that it didn't happen the way that they're telling you. That there is a definite cover up of the American Negro or the original American Indian being here prior to slave prior to that 1619 and some prior to 1492.
That gave disproportionate power to slave states. For example, the 3/5 clause count a slave as 3/5 of a person for population counts. Of course, they weren't considered persons, but property. But that in turn gave.
And you are still property. You and every other white person, everyone else that has the birth certificate in this country is still property. You may look into straw man. You may look into the fact that nobody was really freed in that 1776, the way you think, because this is the way these people operate. They give you a false interpretation or a false perception or a false narrative, okay, when it comes to a lot of these things. It's about confusing you or having you look this way while they're doing their thing that way.
Disproportionate representation to slave states in the House of Representatives. The Constitution also created the Electoral College, a system of electing the President of the United States that gave slave states another avenue to exercise disproportionate influence over national affairs. It is only fitting, then, that we should hold a hearing today on H.R. 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. My colleague, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, who is in another hearing right now, she's here with us, thank you. A member of the subcommittee, is the current lead sponsor of this legislation. Slavery in America, the role of the federal and state governments in supporting slavery and racial discrimination, other forms of discrimination against the descendants of slaves, and the lingering consequences of slavery and Jim Crow on African Americans. The Commission will also make recommendations as to appropriate ways to educate the American public about its findings and appropriate remedies in light of its findings. An honest reckoning with the federal government's role in protecting the institution of slavery has been a leading priority of my congressional career. In 2007, my freshman year, less than 2 months into that term, percent of non-Hispanic whites who live in poverty. That's over 2 times as many. The Census Bureau also reported in 2015 that the net worth of African American households was only about $13,000, which was less than 10% of the nearly 100.
I'm gonna also let you know, and you can be mad if I'm stopping it and talking in between. If you want, you can go ahead and end this video and go to this video right here using this description here, and you can go directly to it on your own. But there's nothing that so-called, and this is just because people are always going off of emotion. There's nothing that's fueling some kind of anger or some kind of, oh no, this is not fair. Oh my goodness, look at these people. They're asking for this, that is going through the so-called delusional or brainwashed so-called white man. And then there's something that's going through the so-called black man or woman, I mean people in general, when I'm saying these terms, is loving the fact that a so-called white man is standing here saying these particular things. Come on, you guys know it. You know there's something in you that's like, yeah, look at that. Yeah, even this white guy is saying it, even though your own people, he's just regurgitating stuff that we've been told over the years anyway. But even though your same brothers and sisters can go and dig up information, bring it to you, spend all their time, and some of us, this is just something that we're going to be doing because we just been called to do it. It's a spiritual calling. It's something that has been deeply inbred in us, and we chose to go ahead and open up our eyes instead of staying asleep. If you want to say from the red pill, blue pill, we chose to take, I can't remember which one, I think it's the red one, to wake up. And that's just the difference between me and you. If you see something, and that's the thing, we say these things over and over again because maybe there's one thing that we might say that you have already been thinking that's somewhat of a confirmation or somewhat of a cue for you to go ahead and do a little bit more research, and it leads you to one thing and another thing, and then you start to open up your mind as well. That's all we're trying to do because we know that everybody has been put under this mental mass mental manipulation. Nobody's excluded. Even if you read the Bible, I don't like to say religious or a Christian. Even if you read your book and you know that Satan is supposed to be deceiving the whole world, they didn't exclude anyone from that. And that's one of the quotes that's one of the scriptures that I like to go ahead and use universally. Still late, y'all. I'm sorry. Universally, because, and you can take it out of the scripture and apply it to a lot of other things because it's just a general statement. It's just a general statement. The only thing you can argue is when was he talking about? When were we talking about that this is what he's going to do? Okay?
$50,000 net worth of non-Hispanic white households. Limited access to wealth, building resources, and opportunities have led to this stark disparity. For instance, African Americans continue to face discrimination in the workplace. They have limited access to educational opportunities. According to the National Education Association, the high school graduation rate for African Americans was 67% compared to the nationwide average of 81%. African Americans also continue to face racial segregation in housing and discrimination in the availability of quality health care service and most other major facets of life. Enacting H.R. 40 would be an important step in finding effective long-term solutions to these problems, ones that can trace their origins to our nation's shameful history of slavery and anti-black racism. As the distinguished Professor Charles Ogletree of Harvard Law School once noted, the concept of reparations does not necessarily mean payments to individuals, but rather a focus on the poorest of the poor, including efforts, quote, to address comprehensively the problems of those who have not substantially benefited from integration or affirmative action, unquote. I hope our hearing today can lead to fruitful conversations with the aim of achieving that goal. I thank our witnesses for being here today and look forward to their testimony. It is now my pleasure to recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Johnson, for his opening statement.
Okay. Now, everything he said there was fine and dandy, except for the fact that you may not be a black person or an African American. Okay? Everything he said sound pretty good, you know. I think he said, so I speeded through a little bit, but something about the fact that most of the stuff that people are asking for is just like a construction of the community jobs and all these other kind of things or whatnot. Okay? So anybody would really pretty much agree with this guy that is so-called black about what these things that we went through, and that yes, these are real things. And I don't know what this H whatever they're talking about is. Maybe I'll have to look a little bit more into it, but it depends on what they want you to do in order to prove, or what do you want, because I don't necessarily want to take any type of a DNA test. Okay? I don't want my stuff in the hands of these people. So, I don't know what they're planning on doing, but hey, the gig is, okay, that they already know who you are. They know everything about you. They know who you're connected to. They could go ahead. They don't even need DNA or ancestry.com. They can go ahead and tell you who you are right now. But the thing is, I don't know if they're trying to get away with not telling you who you are by giving you a little hush money, because a lot of us are waking up. Many, 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 many are digging. They're using their brain. They're using wisdom, discernment, knowledge. They're digging into that higher consciousness. They have some people have still may believe in a Christ and they have a higher consciousness, and some of us believe that we are holding a part of the Christ consciousness, and this is what is helping us see things that we may not have been and seen before. Okay, so it's really your choice. Okay, mental slavery at this point is your choice.
Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start today by saying I maintain the utmost respect for my colleagues on the other side, and I know their beliefs on this issue are sincerely held. I want to thank all our witnesses for being here today, for your good faith testimony and your scholarship. We've all read through it in detail and made many notes. I'll use my brief time here to just focus on an overview of what H.R. 40 is and why we're here. What we're going to discuss here today centers upon a regrettable and shameful portion of American history. Slavery in America and elsewhere was a horrific injustice, the perpetuation of which was
See, then you got this one. Then you got people like this, right? Of slavery and everywhere else. Well, I think what the people in here are doing is talking about here. They have stated they're talking about a specific people, whether that is the true identity of the people or not. That is who we're talking about. So, see, so they're going to give us a little bit of everything that's going to raise your emotions and get you all going, right? Okay.
opposed to the founding ideals expressed in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, including its Bill of Rights. Of course, the evil institution of slavery was legally abolished over 150 years ago on December 6, 1865, via ratification.
Was it? Or was it just a change of hands, or the term, or the people that may be included now?
Of the 13th Amendment following the end of the tragic Civil War. The bill today, H.R. 40, would, quote, establish a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. There are serious questions about this from all sides of the political spectrum, and they're honest and sincere questions that we want to address. But putting aside the injustice of monetary reparations from current taxpayers for the sins of a small subset of Americans for many generations.
Let's stop right there. Monetary payments or collections, something of that sort, is he saying, from everyday taxpayers, blah, 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 would be basically absurd. Well, you know what? I agree. I agree. I feel as though we know exactly, just like they know exactly who you are, they know exactly who it is that would be considered the people, or the small percent of slave owners or family lines or bloodlines with old, long money, or banksters, or bloodlines when it comes to these politicians, or even some of these celebrities are connected to some of these bloodlines. So they know exactly who to go to for the payment of said slave. I don't know. I think I heard somewhere about a McCormick, and I think that's the place that maybe has been in the seasoning business for a very long time. I don't know. I'm looking at tobacco companies. I'm looking at banksters. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't like to tell you what it is or what it ain't. Only what it looked like. And I know one thing that many people don't want to look at. Those particular people, and those are the real gangsters if you really want to know, those people steal. Okay? Run things. Those people still keep the lights on in this country. So if you think any of these people are really going to go against them, they're going to talk a good game. They're going to put on these suits and put on this act in front of us. And, like I said, unless there is something else about to occur that is about to shift something on another level. You understand what I'm saying? Other than this is them saying, hey, these Negroes are getting out of hand. They starting to do research. I think they're going to know who they are. We need to go ahead and do something now. And many of us, because we're uneducated and we are don't have the knowledge, or we don't care to know, or we're just looking for that monetary gain, are going to go for it. I want it all.
ago. The, Let me finish. The fair distribution of reparations would be nearly impossible once one considers the complexity of the American struggle to abolish slavery. Just consider this, okay? There are tens of millions of today's non-African Americans who are descended from people who arrived in the country, of course, after slavery ended. And therefore, they can't be held responsible for.
Okay, and if they are connected to said families, bloodlines, or that long money, they should pay. If they're not, who wants them to pay? I don't. I know that everyday so-called white people don't have no power, and I know that most of them people did not have no slaves in their family. I know that the whole thing has been to make it look like it's so-called a white and a black thing, when it's really the small percentage. And if we think about the 1% that so-called runs the world and owns your TV networks and put money in the pockets of these puppets, if you really think about it, I'm just saying.
Legacy. More tens of millions are descended from people in both the North and South who didn't own slaves or who were descended from white people who fought in the Civil War on the Union side. Indeed, only a small percentage of the total American population were slave owners.
And if you want to be all the way real, because that's the way I like to keep it, I don't care if nobody get mad at me. Some of them may be due some funds as well. I'm not the one to come in the room and say I'm the only one that's owed anything. Again, I keep telling y'all, it's more about the haves and the have-nots. And the haves work hard and spend their whole life using psychology and other tricks and tools in order to keep the have-nots where they want them. We're starting to get restless now. We're starting to, everything is starting to break down a little bit differently. Might be something in the water. Maybe it was something they wanted to try to use to keep us docile, and it just flipped the script on their ass. But something is occurring right here. So that's why I can't be 100% and tell you that nothing's about to change. Don't believe these people because nothing's going to change and all this other stuff, because I don't know. I do feel that something is about to occur. I'm just saying, don't get too excited to think that it's going to be something like this. And if they do something like this, be careful. Be careful. That's all I'm saying.
For the aforementioned reasons and many others, such an approach has been widely unpopular, at least in our recent history. In the 1970s, civil rights organizations openly rejected the idea of reparations, which the NAACP's assistant director himself called, quote, an illogical, diversionary, and paltry way out for guilt-ridden whites, unquote. Bayard Rustin, who organized the 1963 March on Washington and was one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s closest advisors, described the concept as, quote, a ridiculous idea, unquote.
Okay, now, and then he's one of those guys. Do you see what he's doing? Oh, well, these black people said that they shouldn't get it either. Obama. And one thing you need to know about Obama is that regardless of what you think, I have my opinion, and my opinion is that if we want to use ADOS or these terms for reparations for the so-called black people or so-called American Negroes or colored folk that our parents were said to have come from Africa, but most of us, if I'm just talking to you on a one-on-one basis and we just cool like that, can agree that our grandparents told us at some particular time that we were Indian, and the school told you otherwise. And so you went with what they said and you thought grandma was crazy. And now that we're digging up this information, this is a confirmation. And just like everybody else has the right to have their verbal or oral history passed down to them, it's not our fault that it was illegal for our grandparents and other darker view Indians or Native Americans or whatever you might want to call them were picked on in a sense where it led them to be disadvantaged or hidden or thrown under the bus or under the pushed under the carpet. Okay, so they didn't know at the time that these were things that they were using to try to remove your nationality. okay, so that you would become a slave like everybody else that was here and be taxed and be treated in different ways that you were not supposed to because you're somewhat, I don't know if I can use the word sovereign, not citizens, because again, that ties you right back into these particular people. And this is how they've been using these terms and the all this to lead us back into a form of slavery, okay? Or signing ourselves right back over to the corporation, okay? In the District of Columbia, which you call Washington, D.C., or that 10-mile radius within a certain area. So, on that note,
Obama opposed reparations when he ran for president in 2008, and Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders did as well 8 years later. In addition to all this, here in the Judiciary Committee, we have an obligation to acknowledge that any monetary reparations that might be recommended by the commission created by H.R. 40 would almost certainly be unconstitutional on their face. The reason for that, listen, wait a minute. The reason for that is a legal question. See, the legal question is the federal government can't constitutionally provide compensation today to a specific racial group because other members of that group, maybe several generations ago, were discriminated against and treated inhumanely.
but we still have other people that were disadvantaged in other ways here in other places that are still reaping the benefits from certain things. They do it in a low key way when it comes to the so called Native Americans, that are not the original, even though they may be tied to the original, okay? But they are not, okay? When it comes to those folks, they were able to still give them land. They still pay them a couple $1,000s per family member in some of these tribes and in some of these areas, per family member, a couple $1,000s per month. Okay? They're still getting those funds, and I'm not sure exactly where they come from or if there's a certain code or something the point is that there was a wrong done and somebody's trying to right that wrong by giving them these casinos or giving them these funds or whatever else they're doing in order to compensate these people. So that's just ridiculous.
According to the U.S. Supreme Court, they would refer to that as an unconstitutional racial preference. See, the holding of the 1995 case, Richmond v. G.A. Cross and Company, is that racial set-asides and other entitlements are only constitutionally permissible to remedy the present effects of the government's own widespread and recent discrimination. And the federal government is not allowed to provide race-based remedies that are, quote, ageless in their reach into the past and timeless in their ability to affect the future, unquote.
No, the reason why you're not getting your stuff, I'm trying to cut down on the bad words. The reason why you're not getting your stuff is because the host or the people that are holding your particular place, the natives or not the originals, are reaping the benefits that are due to you right now. Because African Americans, which is another one of these Negroes that you trust, Jesse Jackson and all of these fools that have been working so hard at doing things and liberating you for so long and you have not moved 1 inch, thought that it would be crafty to introduce that term African America in the 1980s, late 1980s, maybe 89. So, when they're changing you from the color to the Negro to the blacks to the niggers to the, you know what I'm saying? Just forget about all of the emotions that come along with that and know that somebody has been changing your identity. Okay? And this is why you won't get any reparations unless this is some other thing that they're putting in giving you the perception that it is a form of reparations, and it may be something else that might be also then having you sign yourself away or sign away your nationality, which who knows, maybe it's a certain amount of years where they can keep us under this false representation, and now that is up. So they're trying to figure out different ways by having you vote for these fools that have been telling you that they're gonna do something and ain't nobody. What is this really a real thing still? So-called white folks and so-called black folks? Is this really a real thing that we're still do? Have you even watched any of this debate? I haven't. I took about 5 minutes to watch some of this stuff, and I just thought to myself, who is still doing this? Has anyone thought to look a little bit deeper into voting? What if we didn't? What if we said we sick of all these lies? Nobody is feeling good about anything these days. We're not doing it. What would happen? Maybe we're granting these people stay by participating. Oh, they'll call you and text you like they're your best friend. Oh, this is Jackie down at the, are you coming by? Are you serious? And Democrat, Republican, left and right, the damn wings on the same bird. And that bird is just a puppet. It is just a face. Okay? It's all that. They pretend to be fighting with each other. It's all to keep you going that way as well. They do it with everything they got. Still, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed to the point where we've been working at it this long. They even gave you a so-called or somebody that looked like an American Indian Negro, but was actually of a different nationality. Because we tend to forget that this is a foreign. Remember, God let it rain? He hadn't let it rain on the earth. You know what the earth is? The earth represents indigenous people and the other people that sprung from. You get my drift? So, this is a foreign nation that is within a nation running a nation. And all the representation is coming from those other nations. See what I'm saying? Go back. The first president was connected to the crown. Go back and see how many more of them there are. Go back and look and see how many presidents were related to each other. Do your research. You can think I'm lying, or you can do your own research.
Now, listen, I get it. I've read the scholarship. I know that some proponents of this legislation believe that the very discussion of reparations itself would be cathartic for our nation. But we have to ask if discussions can result in justice today. They certainly probably won't provide consensus.
You know what? Tell the truth. Tell the truth. It's many of us that's already dedicated our life to doing so. It's only a matter of time that we all get on one accord or close to it. Or we don't have to be on the same. That's what I'm saying. Don't be getting mad just because somebody ain't on the same level of spreading truth as you. What are we calling each other out for? We're all leading. We're all pieces of the puzzle. We're trying to put it together. Don't nobody know everything. You looking in the sky for somebody to run up out the sky on a white horse when I'm telling you that consciousness or that Christos or that Christ resides in you. It's time to wake your ass up. The only one in your life on an everyday basis that's going to save you from a situation is yourself. That's not mandatory and that's not the way it always has to be. But when it comes to you harming yourself because you are failing to see the truth in front of you or not digging hard enough or the lack of knowledge or cognitive or you suffer from cognitive dissonance, these are things that you have to free yourself from. You have to stop taking people's word for everything. Stop taking everything at face value. Do your due diligence. This is for your children, their future, and the future of other children that may not have a chance because of the fact that they look like you. Excuse me, sorry. I'm not cutting it out because I'm keeping these videos real. I don't know how to stop the video and start it back up. That's what's going on. Okay. I'm up late night. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, you're going to get the real. I don't take the time to make fancy things on this video and make the screen all pretty. I'm just bringing it to you.
Instead, many people of good conscience believe they'll distract from the many persistent causes of current racial disparities. They certainly exist. The despicable racism of America's past is part of that, as Mr. Coates, for example, has documented in a very compelling way, but so are other social than the man in front of you. So when your white roommate says he's tired and goes to sleep, you stay up and burn the midnight oil. Dr. King's words reflect an important tradition of self-reliance, I'm still quoting, that has had eloquent advocates in the African American community. Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, and many others. All of them were...
Again, be careful who you call yours. A lot of these people, if they have been put on a platform in front of you, and some of them been doing it for 60 years and still in your damn face today. Everything sound good, but there's no friction. There's no action behind it. You have to then question what is really going on. It's up to yourself. It's up to each one of us to do our part. Wake up out of the slumber. Put down that damn remote control unless you're watching something that's going to go ahead and fill you in on something that you are looking into, and do the work. And the thing, one of the things too, religion, it has done a number. The church has done a number on the people. And the thing that irritates me the most is that most people choose to get upset about it because they feel some kind of way, and they walk away from the church and they go ahead and leave the book behind. What I'm telling you is they didn't have to change the book that much. They changed your perception. They had to do it with the mind. They change your perception. And these pastors have been, again, leading you to these fine pastors. And you've been eating away at that nice, fine grass. And I'm telling you that wolf in sheep's clothing is coming up on your ass. And they get paid, especially these ones that you flock to these mega churches and all this other stuff. They know who they are. And certain things that they're into when it comes to these churches, they are subscribed or they're signed up to deal with those that are the haves. Okay? And they are doing the same thing that they're doing on a different level to the have-nots. And if you can't see that yet, then I don't know what to do, okay?
In their different ways, that African Americans were not powerless to better their lives until America owned up to its historical sins and offered them a generous financial settlement. The point is as important today as ever. That's what he wrote to this committee the last
of Michigan introduced H.R. 40, which would establish
another. We all know that.
And since he want to talk about Martin Luther King also said that before the Pilgrims came, we was here. He also said that he think that he has walked his people into a burning building. See, this is what I'm telling you. All these people, I really have, because I don't think with emotion, I do feel like Malcolm may not have been as compromised, okay? I think that, but at some point he was, okay? Because when it comes to religion, again, I don't agree with or subscribe to any religion. And I am not an atheist. I just choose to read my Bible, and I have been able to see more truth, and I have received more closure doing that alone than I have ever had dealing with anybody in a church. That's just me. That may not be you, just me. And other people like me. Okay? So when I say this, people going to get in their feelings, but the closest I think that were real or wanted to keep it real with you would be X and King. Because I think King didn't know what he was doing. Like he said, I'm afraid that this is what I have done. There's something about the spirit of that man. And I think that he was just holding that torch for to pass it to us, for us to do exactly what's going on in the so-called black community, the American Indian community today. And if you don't know, when in 67, I believe it was, when he was fighting for the rights, it was for the rights of the American Indians or Indians, in case you didn't know. Okay? So and before he was taken away from us, or now we know that he was not even killed on the scene, it wasn't until he got to the hospital, supposedly, that they smothered him to death. Okay? That he was letting the cat out the bag and letting you know that you was already here. Same thing I think Malcolm was doing when he was trying to tell you that you are the Aborigine, but you don't want to be that. Think about it. But of course, they're going to keep on keeping you in the I have a dream and everybody hold hands, because that's what they want to reiterate to you every single year. And now your children in school every single year. The same thing every single year. They don't want to go beyond that point. Okay?
All of it is despicable, and every single instance of it is un-American. The honest question we have today, and that's what we're here to discuss.
And I don't want to hear him
In
anymore.
education initiatives, righting wrongs that cannot be fixed.
Unanimous consent that Ms. Representative Karen Bass be allowed to sit on the dais. She's a member of the committee, but not the subcommittee. Without objection. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Bass. And Mr. Green was just here from Houston. I think he's coming back. And now I'd like to recognize the gentlelady from Texas for an opening statement, Ms. Sheila Jackson Lee.
Chairman, thank you very much, and thank you to Chairman Nadler for identity of H.R. 4 as a legitimate legislative action that should receive the full hearing of this committee, should in fact have a markup, go to the floor of the House, go to the United States Senate, and be signed by the President of the United States of America. This is an action of legislative commitment, and this is not a symbolic action, though I am gratified.
In all fairness, like I told you, I don't deal with any of these people. I don't believe anything that they say. I don't believe, I know that they say a lot of stuff at face value, and there's no real work going on behind the scenes because they all play a part in this illusion. Okay? But again, I don't know if, just like I gave King the benefit of the doubt when I started to see how deep the deception was running, I think a lot of these people at some point in time, and now it might have to be something that they all have to do, are starting to wake up or starting to be able to, at some point in time, reveal the truth. And I think that this is a time for the truth to be coming out. It was said in the Bible, no matter how you look at it. I don't even look at the Bible as a religious book. I look at it as first a history book, and then a book just that hey, if you think it's your enemy's book, if you wouldn't want to read your enemy's book if he was coming here to take your life, to know what his strategy is. So when you remove the religious aspect from the book and you start looking into history and things like this, the book starts to come to life, and it starts to show you things that you have never seen before. For me, I cannot read the Bible the regular way. People are going to get mad at me because of the way that I am reading it, but I cannot read it the regular way that everybody else does, because I have done extensive research, verse by verse, using all the tools in my arsenal in order to break down these scriptures and these verses, and I see something totally different than what we have been told. Totally different than what we have been told. So, on that note, I think it's harder for those have been indoctrinated or have been brought up in the church, or they subscribe to that, again, religion or that outlook, because you cannot say that you're using your whole mental capacity if you have to go to the pastor, or if he is giving you his personal interpretation on these things. Same thing when it comes to school. That is their personal. So you cannot be getting the real feeling or what it would be to know about your history, because you're not getting it from a credible source. Okay?
We are having this hearing on Juneteenth. For those of us who understand Juneteenth, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, there were those Africans who did not have freedom until 1865. So let me begin and indicate to my friends who have expressed a variety of assessments of H.R. 40 and say that America is a place that welcomes the diversity of thought. We even welcome the diversity of thought among the multicolored chocolate people that are African Americans, descendants of African slaves.
Okay. This is where I stop, because I feel like something tricky is going on, because again, the truth that the American Negro is actually the American Indian to a certain aspect. And I'm not saying that he is the only American Indian or the only peoples that were here prior to 1492, but I am saying that they have been lied to you about the transatlantic slave trade. And most of you were already here. Just like they say 5% of the so-called white man owned slaves, 5% of the so-called slaves from the transatlantic during the entire trade were brought into North America. And that is about 250,000 or so people. Okay? So when she tells this next lie, she's definitely putting emphasis on the African thing. Okay?
Be very clear. It is only this group, even though they attempted to enslave Native Americans, it is only this group that can singularly claim to have been slaves.
Yeah. They kind of enslaved them in a certain extent, not the same way, but because those were their offspring, okay? And they used those particular people for a purpose, and that is to fill the void that would have been there. That is what the American Indian. So basically, a lot of these people have taken on the identity. Okay, Hollywood has shown you that version of an American Indian. Oh, well, no, and they're not even that. They will be the native, which is something that sprouted or came from the archetype, which would be the original, that other people would be modeled after. Okay. So let's not, that lie they told you about they was too strong and crazy to be captured and so they couldn't be enslaved. That is a lie. It is a whole lie. Some of those tribes were the ones they used to turn against you in order to enslave you. And then later on, just like Dr. Claude Anderson says, they came along with the people in the White House, which is why they still probably go there to this day to get those stupid medals put on like Oprah did recently. They go there today because they came up with a plan to keep you out of the clans or their bands or their tribes. Okay? And then it was something about to do with DNA, or the fact that you would have to be proved by DNA to be a connected to their said tribes. And at the end of the day, that may not happen for you because, again, those are not the original people. When they start to take the DNA from the people that they are digging up underneath this soil at a certain point in time, and they start comparing that blood to the American Negro, then you might be able to find something. But they know exactly what they're doing because those are Siberian, Mongoloid, or Asian um descent, Asiatic maybe, I'm not sure when it comes to that term, people that were brought here or came here at a different time. They may, and also this is when I'm telling you I'm not being biased. They also could have been here prior to colonization. I'm not saying that they weren't. So there you go. They could have been here too. Some white folks could have been here prior to. But I am talking about the people that have been erased from that ancient history and told that they were from Africa. Okay?
Under the auspices, the institution, and leadership of the United States government. And so, H.R. 40 is in fact the response of the United States of America long overdue. Slavery is the original sin. Slavery has never received an apology. This commission would be comprised of members selected by the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House,
Another original sin is having people misled into thinking that the Bible is thousands of years old and that it has something to do with a one God that is standing over us in heaven and gonna send us to hell if we do something bad.
and of course, those who've been entrenched in this process. I spoke to John Conyers yesterday. I'm honored to have been given the opportunity to lead this bill. John Conyers said to move on and to lead on, and for us to take this forward. Thank you, Congressman John Conyers, for all that you have done. So let me share with you just a sense of what we face. Let me first of all say the number of Africans who died in the Middle Passage, over 2 million. Number of enslaved who died during slavery, first, second, and third generation, over 2.5 million. The transatlantic slave trade was the largest movement of people in history. Between 10 and 15 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic between 1500 and 1900. At least 2 million Africans, 10 to 15%, died in the infamous Middle Passage, as I said, and another 15 to 30% died during the march to or confinement along the coast. Altogether, for every 100 slaves who reached the New World, another 40 died in Africa or doing movement of people in history between 10.
And they won't tell you. I don't know why they clipped that out like that. I noticed that the first time too, because I thought it was a live video. But notice they don't tell you about the thousands of American Indians that looked like what they called American Negroes that ended up over in Africa, and that some of these voyagers, like Columbus, were taking these people back over there by the thousands to sell or take them back over to overseas at that particular time. And the people that they are testing you with over there in West Africa, because of course everybody that happened to be right there along the coast when the slavers came were not, there couldn't be nobody visiting from Egypt or nobody visiting from North Africa or from South Africa or anything. It was only everybody that does their blood test end up coming from the same couple places, the same 3 places. But they don't tell you about the freedmen that went over to Sierra Leone, and I believe there's one more, but I'm so tired I can't even remember. I know there is, I just can't remember the name off the top of my head. To start not a republic. Maybe I am trying to use the term republic, or a republic, I think, over there as well. So
and 15 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic between 1500 and 1900. At least 2 million Africans, 10 to 15%, died in the infamous Middle Passage, as I said, and another 15 to 30% died during the march to or confinement along the coast. Altogether, for every 100 slaves who reached the New World, another 40 died in Africa or doing the Middle Passage.
But you know who did come over here in the thousands later on in the mid to late 1800s are people that came from, I like to call it, Afri-Asia, okay? And there was a lot of people that came from there, but I'm trying to tell you, just like these voyagers and some of these people that came over here, they wasn't all the colors that you think they were. They came in all different skin colors and types. So keep that in mind. Don't be bamboozled and don't be fooled because they got these people tap dancing in front of you. I'm not telling you that a change ain't coming. I'm just saying be very vigilant and pay attention to these terms that they are using. Again, nobody enslaved an African American. They were not calling you African then. Okay? Nobody enslaved the African American. So this is why you have not gotten your stuff yet. Okay? We have to remember that. Signs and symbols run the world in terms and they use their spelling, and their ghost spell or gospel in order to deceive. And we have fallen for it for way too long, but several of us are waking up out of the slumber and we're trying to bring you along with us so that we can finally unite and stand our ground. It doesn't even have anything to do with anything physical. It's really about the mental, because once we're there at that particular mindset and we're there and we're rising to the occasion together, there's nothing that they can do to stop what's going to transpire after that. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. The reason why I do this is because I wake up in the middle of my sleep. I wake up in the morning. I wake up at night. I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about my people first and then humanity as a whole. Every single day, all day long. Sometimes I can't even focus on what I need to focus when it comes to my immediate peoples that need me, because I'm trying to get some type of or relay some type of message to you guys. It's about us. Always has been. Always has been. Don't let nobody stop you or quiet you down. And I have been going through a little bit of a transition, right now when it comes to censoring myself because family members, this and that. This goes deeper than even that. Okay? And if you have a problem with something I say and you my family, whatever I do is all out of love. I'm not trying to be a hateful person at all. Pretty much, I would think that people that know me know that that's not where I'm coming from. That's not where I've never, ever been coming from. So it's all out of love. It's all out of love. It's all out of love. Thank you guys for watching, and I will definitely see you guys soon. Take care.